What happens when a contract marriage ends and a woman is left pregnant with nothing but a secret? 5 years later, her child inherits a fortune and a legacy that could change everything. Emily Carter sat across from Jason Whitmore, the air between them thick with tension. It wasn't supposed to be personal. It was a business arrangement, plain and simple. Jason, heir to the multi-million-dollar Whitmore Enterprises, needed a wife to satisfy a clause in his grandfather's will. And Emily, a quiet graphic designer scraping by in Chicago, needed money for her late father's medical debts. 6 months, Jason said, sliding the contract across the table. We stay married for half a year, keep up appearances, and once the time's up, we go our separate ways. You'll get a $200,000 payout. Emily stared at the document, heart racing. She didn't know Jason well. They'd met through mutual contacts and had only spoken a few times before this strange proposition. But her bank account was empty and the hospital bills were still coming in. What about people finding out? She asked. We'll be discreet. You'll move into my condo, come to a few public events, smile for the cameras. No strings attached. No strings. That was the key phrase. Emily nodded slowly and picked up the pen. All right, she said, signing her name. Let's do it. The wedding was quiet, just a courthouse ceremony with a few of Jason's business associates posing as guests. To the public, it was a whirlwind romance. To them, it was a countdown. At first, it wasn't so bad. Jason was polite, even charming at times. They fell into a routine. Emily continued freelance work from the condo, while Jason handled company affairs. They ate dinner together sometimes, shared idle conversation, even laughed once in a while. But as the months passed, something began to shift. Jason started coming home later, more tired. Emily caught herself watching him a little too long, wondering what he was thinking. Once when she caught a cold, Jason brought her soup and sat by her side until she fell asleep. Then one night, after a particularly stressful day for them both, the lines blurred. I never asked, Jason murmured as they sat on the balcony. Why'd you agree to this? Emily hesitated. My dad's dead. I wanted to clear his name. Give my mom peace. Jason nodded, silent for a while. You're stronger than you look. The words lingered. The 6-month mark came faster than either expected. Emily found herself waking up beside Jason that final morning, torn between relief and something else. Something unspoken. He handed her a manila envelope, the termination papers, and her final payout. Thank you, Emily, he said quietly. She smiled, heart aching. Goodbye, Jason. What he didn't know, what she hadn't realized until just a few weeks earlier, was that she wasn't leaving alone. Emily was pregnant. Emily Carter stepped out of the Whitmore condo for the last time, clutching the check in her purse with trembling fingers. It should have felt like a victory. 6 months ago, she was drowning in debt. Now she had enough money to clear her father's medical bills, start fresh somewhere else. But the weight in her stomach, both emotional and physical, told a different story. Pregnant. The word echoed in her mind every time she took a breath. She hadn't told Jason. There hadn't been time. And even if there had been, what would she have said? By the way, I'm carrying your child. Surprise! She couldn't bear the thought of being accused of trapping him, or worse, being ignored altogether. Emily left Chicago behind and moved to a small town in Oregon called Ashwood. It was quiet, nestled between mountains and pine trees, the kind of place no one would think to look for her. She rented a modest house, small but cozy, and got a job designing logos and websites for local businesses. The first few months were rough. Morning sickness, fatigue, and the loneliness hit her harder than she expected, but she stayed strong for the baby. She read parenting books, joined an online support group for single mothers, and slowly started making a life. She named her daughter Lily. The moment she held Lily in her arms, everything else fell away. The pain, the fear, the guilt. It was all replaced by love. Lily had Jason's deep blue eyes and Emily's gentle smile. She was perfect. Years passed. Emily built a quiet, fulfilling life. Lily grew into a bright, curious little girl who loved drawing and chasing butterflies in their backyard. Emily never once regretted her decision to keep her pregnancy a secret. She figured Jason had moved on, probably married for real this time. He hadn't reached out, and she had made peace with that. Until one day the past came knocking. Emily was picking Lily up from preschool when a sleek black car pulled up next to hers. A man in a suit stepped out, holding an envelope. He wasn't familiar, but his suit screamed money and business. "Miss Carter?" he asked, checking a note. "I'm here on behalf of the Whitmore family." Emily's heart skipped. "What?" He handed her the envelope. "Mr. Jason Whitmore passed away last week. You've been named in his will." She froze. Her mind raced in trying to process the words. Passed away? Jason was gone? What? What does this mean? She whispered. "You'll need to speak with the estate lawyer. But there's something else. The will names a child. Lily Carter." Emily felt the world tilt under her feet. "What?" she breathed. How does he know about her?" The man gave a small nod. "We were hoping you could tell us." Emily clutched Lily's hand tightly as the child looked up, confused. Suddenly, the life Emily had built was no longer just hers. The past she'd buried was clawing its way back, and with it, secrets she thought she'd buried for good. 3 weeks into their new life, the cracks started to show. Not in the kids. Nathan expected that. Trauma didn't just disappear because someone offered you a nice house and new clothes. No, the cracks showed in him. He'd faced boardrooms filled with hostile investors. He'd negotiated contracts that spanned continents. But nothing prepared him for 5 kids yelling at once about whose turn it was to control the TV remote. Samantha refused to eat anything but microwaved mac and cheese. Jessie had nightmares nearly every night. Chloe carried her stuffed rabbit like a security blanket, even to school. Mikey wet the bed twice that week, and Ben barely spoke. But when he did, it was always something sharp and cold. "You think you're saving us," Ben had said during one tense dinner. "You can't buy a family, man. We've seen people try." Nathan didn't flinch. "I'm not buying anything. I'm offering you a place to stay where no one splits you up." Ben had dropped his fork and stormed off. Later, Nathan sat alone in the den with a glass of water, staring at a photo of his old company's launch day. Everyone in the photo looked so full of purpose. Lately, he just felt tired, overwhelmed. Still, he got up early the next day, made breakfast, packed lunches, helped Mikey tie his shoes even though he could barely tie his own tie. He showed up, even if he didn't always get it right. One night, Pittsburgh was hit with a powerful thunderstorm. Wind howled against the windows, and lightning lit up the sky like a strobe light. The power went out just after 8 p.m. Panic hit fast. Chloe clung to Samantha, crying. Mikey crawled under the couch cushions like they were shields. Jessie ran from room to room calling for help. Nathan found Ben by the back door, flashlight in hand, staring at the storm like it was something familiar. "Don't like the dark?" Nathan asked gently. Ben didn't look at him. "I'm not scared of the storm. I'm scared of what happens after it." Nathan nodded slowly. He didn't push. Instead, he gathered everyone in the living room, lit candles, and pulled out his phone for music. Thankfully, it had enough charge. They sat on the floor, wrapped in blankets, eating granola bars and telling stories. Nathan made up a ridiculous tale about a superhero dad who couldn't cook but always saved the day. Mikey laughed so hard he fell backward onto a pillow. Chloe eventually stopped crying. Even Samantha smiled a little. Then something unexpected happened. Ben added to the story. Just a line, barely louder than a whisper, but it was there. Nathan didn't call it out, didn't make a big deal. He just smiled and kept the story going. The storm passed after midnight, and power returned with a flicker and hum. The kids were fast asleep in sleeping bags around the couch, like some chaotic, beautiful campsite. Nathan watched them and realized, storms didn't always destroy things. Sometimes they cleared the way for something new to grow. A month after the storm, the Briggs household had settled into a rhythm. Not a perfect one, but real. Mornings were a blur of cereal bowls, backpack checks, and missing shoes. Evenings were a mix of homework struggles, chore assignments, and Nathan's determined but often disastrous attempts at home-cooked meals. But one Thursday night promised to shake it all up again. Parent-teacher night at Mill Creek Elementary. Nathan stood in front of the bathroom mirror, adjusting the collar of a shirt he hadn't worn since selling his company. He looked like someone who had their life together, even though his heart was racing. He could pitch to investors, sure, but talking to teachers about 5 traumatized kids, that was new territory. He arrived at the school just before 6 p.m. The parking lot was packed with minivans and SUVs. Inside, parents huddled around bulletin boards and student artwork displays. Nathan spotted Jesse's name under a colorful volcano drawing and smiled. A small hand tugged at his sleeve. "Jesse." "You came," Jesse said, beaming. "Wouldn't miss it, buddy," Nathan replied, squeezing his shoulder. They made the rounds. Chloe's class had an art showcase. Samantha had a science poster on invasive species. Mikey had glued macaroni into what might have been the solar system. Teachers were polite but curious. "You're the guardian?" one of them asked. "Yes," Nathan said. "Officially now." Some offered kind word, others raised brows. But one teacher, Mrs. Everett, Ben's English teacher, pulled Nathan aside. "I wanted to talk to you about Ben," she said softly. Nathan braced himself. Here it comes. He's smart, really smart. His essays are sharp, thoughtful, but he doesn't turn things in on time. He stays distant in group work. Today he left a writing prompt blank. The title was, "What Family Means to Me." Nathan nodded slowly. "He's figuring things out. I understand, but I think he's waiting to see if this is real, if you're real." Those words stuck with Nathan the rest of the night. On the way home, he tried to engage Ben. "Your teacher says you're a good writer." Ben shrugged. "She says a lot of things. I read your essay about the book banning issue. You made some great points." Ben glanced at him, surprised. "You read that?" "Every word." Ben didn't reply, but the silence felt different, less guarded. Later that night, Nathan stood in the doorway of the shared bedroom, where Jesse and Mikey were already asleep. Chloe and Samantha were whispering in their room down the hall. Ben sat at the kitchen counter, writing in his notebook. Without looking up, he asked, "You ever think about quitting?" Nathan stepped in and leaned on the counter. "Every day, but then I remember why I started." Ben tapped his pen, nodding slightly. "Same. It wasn't a breakthrough. It wasn't a movie moment, but it was something." That night, Nathan didn't sleep well, but he didn't mind. The house was full of quiet sounds, footsteps, creaky floorboards, the hum of the fridge. Not noise, life. And for the first time, it felt like a home. Spring had crept into Pittsburgh, bringing with it early sunrises, muddy sneakers, and the unmistakable hum of lawnmowers in the distance. Nathan was learning that fatherhood didn't come with a manual, but it did come with an ever-growing list of dates to remember. One of those dates was fast approaching, Chloe's birthday. She was turning 12, and Nathan wanted to do something special. But when he brought it up over breakfast, she froze. "We don't really do birthdays," she said, avoiding his eyes. "You do now," he replied gently. "We're making this one count." That set off a whole series of reactions. Samantha rolled her eyes but didn't object. Jesse asked if there would be cake. Mikey wanted balloons. Ben, as usual, said nothing. But Nathan noticed the way his grip tightened slightly on his fork. Nathan reached out to Denise, their social worker, for advice. "Trauma kids don't always respond well to celebration," she explained. "They associate parties with disappointment, with people forgetting, with promises that don't last." Still, Nathan pressed on, carefully. He let Chloe choose her own cake, vanilla with purple frosting. He asked each sibling to make something handmade for her. No big party, no strangers, just them. The night before her birthday, Nathan stayed up late in the kitchen, frosting the uneven, lumpy cake himself. The writing on top was crooked and slightly smeared. "Happy 12th, Chloe." The next day, Chloe came downstairs to find the kitchen decked out in purple streamers and paper flowers. A small box sat on the table. A charm bracelet Nathan had picked out, with 5 tiny charms. A heart, a bunny, a paintbrush, a star, and the word hope. Chloe stared at the bracelet for a long time before whispering, "It's perfect." They ate pizza and cake at the dining table for the first time as a family. Jesse did a silly dance that made everyone laugh. Samantha gave Chloe a handmade sketch of the two of them. Mikey proudly presented a crayon drawing that featured Chloe as a superhero. Even Ben handed her something, a small folded poem. Chloe read it silently, then hugged him hard. He looked uncomfortable but didn't pull away. Later that night, Nathan tucked Mikey into bed. "Do we all get birthdays now?" Mikey asked sleepily. "Of course," Nathan said. "What if you forget?" Nathan leaned down. "I won't. Not ever." Across the hallway, Chloe came into the kitchen holding her bracelet. "You didn't have to do all this," she said. "I wanted to," Nathan replied. She nodded, looking thoughtful. It felt real, like we were a real family. Nathan's throat tightened. "That's because we are." She walked over and hugged him, quick and quiet, but real, just like she said. After she went to bed, Nathan sat alone for a while, thinking about the bracelet, about how something so small could mean something so big. And for the first time, he didn't feel like he was pretending. He felt like a dad. In the weeks following the court decision, Emily and Lily returned to Ashwood, Oregon, hoping for peace. But peace was hard to come by when the story had gone national. Overnight, Emily Carter had become the girl who took the Whitmore fortune, and Lily was being labeled everything from an heiress to a scandal. Their mailbox overflowed with interview requests, letters from distant relatives, and even offers for book deals. Paparazzi staked out the local grocery store. One even tried to sneak onto Lily's preschool playground. Emily had no interest in fame. All she wanted was normalcy for her daughter, but the Whitmore name had a gravity she hadn't anticipated. Barlow called her one afternoon. "We need to talk about the trust. There are opportunities to manage it, but you'll need professional support." "I don't want to live like them," Emily said bluntly. "Jason didn't either. Not really." "I know," Barlow replied, "but Lily will need guidance as she gets older. That kind of wealth draws attention, for better or worse." Reluctantly, Emily agreed to hire a financial advisor and set up a foundation in Lily's name, one focused on helping single mothers and children in need. If Lily was going to inherit a fortune, it would at least do some good in the world. Meanwhile, Lily had questions, lots of them. "Why do people take my picture, Mommy? Why don't we see Daddy? Is Grandma Whitmore mad at us?" Emily did her best to answer honestly, in ways a 5-year-old could understand. "Daddy is in heaven, sweet pea. He loved you, even if he didn't get to know you. And yes," she added gently, "some people don't understand our family. But that's okay. We don't have to prove anything to them." One night, Lily crawled into her mom's bed, clutching a drawing. It was a picture of her, Emily, and a man with dark hair and a big smile. "That's Daddy," Lily whispered. "I made it from the photo in your drawer." Emily's throat tightened. It was a photo she thought she'd hidden away, one from the early days of the contract marriage, before things became confusing. Jason wasn't smiling in many photos, but in that one, he had been, standing next to her. "He would have loved this," Emily said, brushing hair from Lily's face. "Will I ever meet his family again?" Lily asked. Emily hesitated. "Maybe one day, but only if it's safe and kind. For now, we just focus on being happy." She kissed Lily's forehead as her daughter drifted to sleep. Later that night, Emily pulled out the letter Jason had written, still creased from being folded too many times. In it, he'd said something she hadn't really let herself believe until now. "If I'm gone, and you're reading this, I hope you tell her I loved her. I didn't know how to be a father, but I wanted to try. I wanted her to have everything I didn't." Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Emily whispered into the dark, "She does, Jason, and I'll make sure she always does." 5 years later, on a crisp spring morning, Lily Whitmore stood in front of the Ashwood Community Center, a red ribbon in her hand and a giant pair of ceremonial scissors in the other. She was 10 now, bright-eyed, confident, and wearing a denim jacket covered in butterfly patches. Behind her stood Emily, proud and steady, watching the little girl who had once fit into the crook of her arm now beam under the weight of cameras and community attention. The Lily Whitmore Foundation Center for Families had just finished construction, a safe haven for single mothers, children, and struggling families. It had classrooms, counseling offices, daycare facilities, and free community meals. Funded by the trust, managed by a small team Emily personally vetted. It was everything she had hoped to build with Jason's posthumous gift. "On behalf of me and my mom," Lily said into the microphone, "thank you for helping us make this place real. I hope this helps lots of families feel safe and loved. Just like I do." The crowd erupted in applause. Emily clapped, tears shimmering in her eyes. This was what they had fought for. Not the money, not the recognition, but the chance to create something lasting, something that made the world better. Jason's legacy wasn't just wealth, it was Lily. After the ceremony, as the guests filed inside to tour the facility, Lily ran up and grabbed her mom's hand. "Did I do okay?" she asked. "You were amazing," Emily said, hugging her tightly. They walked through the center together, stopping at a mural in the main hallway. It was a painting of a man standing beneath a tree, holding a little girl in his arms. His features were soft, a blend of what Emily remembered and what Lily imagined. Next to it was a plaque, in memory of Jason Whitmore. He never held her hand, but he left her the world. One day, Emily had told Lily everything: the contract marriage, how Jason had left her with nothing but a check and an unintended gift, and how in his final act, he'd chosen to give her everything. Lily hadn't cried. Instead, she asked, "Was he a good man?" Emily had thought about that long and hard. "He tried to be," she finally said, "and that matters." Later that evening, as the sun set behind the pine trees and guests began to trickle home, Emily and Lily sat on the porch of their modest house, the same one they'd started in years ago. "You ever think about moving?" Lily asked, leaning against her. "Sometimes," Emily said with a smile, "but this is where you and I built something, and I think your dad would have liked that." Lily grinned. "I think so too." The wind rustled the trees, and somewhere in the distance, a bird sang. Emily looked down at the child she had once feared raising alone, the child who had inherited more than a fortune. She had inherited strength, kindness, and the unshakable bond of a mother who never gave up. And in that moment, Emily knew. This was more than the end of a story. It was the beginning of something beautiful. Emily's journey from a contract wife to the devoted mother of an unexpected heiress is a story of resilience, love, and integrity. What began as a cold agreement turned into a legacy built not on wealth, but on quiet strength and sacrifice. Through heartbreak and battle, Emily protected her daughter, and together they transformed tragedy into purpose. If you were moved by Emily and Lily's story, share this retelling with someone who believes in second chances. And don't forget to follow for more emotional, twist-filled stories that prove love always finds a way.